Hello, hello, hello. This is Tamika Seaton, President and CEO of Grow Your Nonprofit, where we help startups, small and stagnant nonprofits grow through fundraising strategies, strategic planning, and so much more. Before we get started, I'd like to thank the sponsors of my podcast. Hodges University, with a campus in Fort Myers. Stay near, go far. They change lives for the better. Trinity Life Foundation. They help at-risk youth change their life around with their enrichment programs. AVID, that stands for the Associations of Haitians Living Abroad. They just opened an amazing community resource center where they will help you with Hurricane Ian complications, rental and utility assistance, and so much more. Last but not least, VaxTruth. They just received a grant for the CDC to raise awareness of COVID-19 and vaccine in the Black and Brown communities. Guys, today, you are in for a treat. I have my special guest here, Dr. Tonia Phanor. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Dr. Phanor is so amazing. Today, we're going to talk about communication for your nonprofit and everything in between. There's something interesting that we also spoke about earlier before we start the podcast. It was called
Intercultural communication.
Intercultural communication. I think that is so important because especially here in Southwest Florida, we have people, transplants from all over the world, particularly people from the islands, Caribbean, Haiti, up north, and me, a rare bird, California. And you're from California too, right? Yeah. And so basically, how all that mixes in together and how we could, I guess, make it work to our advantage, because differences are an advantage. So let's start with you introducing yourself, and then we'll get right into the crux of our conversation.
Yes, well, like you said, I'm Dr. Tonia Phanor, and I am a communication consultant and speaker and author. I taught communication for over 20 years at various universities in Georgia and Florida, but now I work with nonprofits, corporate, private, and even government to do trainings to help their staff and their executives communicate with clarity and confidence.
Very good, very good. So how do you do that? How do you start that conversation of getting them to communicate when sometimes they don't even know if they have an issue?
This is true. So definitely communication is not something, I think some people think that, it's just something you're born with, that some people are just naturally good communicators, and there might be some natural proclivities to be it for just like a sport or just like music, but guess what? You have to practice and you have to work on that. And it's an art that takes time, and with the right coaching, with the right training, just like any other thing, with writing, with speaking, with any other art form, you have to work on it. And none of us are exempt. Whether it's communication interpersonally within our personal relationships, or professionally or business communication, there might be a whole new business acumen that you need to be aware of. There's a language within various different industries that you have to be aware of. If we talk about intercultural communication, depending on who your business is serving, you need to be aware that there are differences in how we communicate things, both verbally and nonverbally. And just little things that we do could be offensive to someone without you even realizing it could be nonverbal. So these are things that we have to be aware of and have to continually to grow in our knowledge and understanding so that we can serve our clients or our communities in the best way possible.
You know, communication is... it's not as easy as it sounds. I used to I think I'm probably still misunderstood. You know what I'm saying? Because I think a lot in my head, and I assess situations before I speak. And in turn, I make certain faces. And then when I'm talking to people, people will say, "Are you mad?" Or what's going on, or what are you thinking? I'm just processing everything in my head, and I make these faces and stuff. I'm like, no, that's not what I mean. And then it can be really difficult to communicate, especially and when you're in corporate America, right? And you have a corporate culture. How does one navigate a corporate culture?
Well, just like any other culture, like we talk about intercultural communication, you have to first learn and understand what that culture is. And I think sometimes people are ignorant of the differences and they just jump into something thinking that it's just like your culture, or you do things the same way that you've always done them, and it's a whole new culture. So like, just like, I've lived abroad and studied abroad. When you go in, you first need to observe.
Right.
You need to learn, what's appropriate. There are a lot of cultural things that are unspoken, that no one ever says. Like when I lived in Japan, no one will tell you, oh, you take off your shoes before you walk into a house. Or there's a certain level that you bow when you're talking to someone that is above you. You bow lower. When you're talking to someone on your same level, you have a slight bow, And so these are things that aren't necessarily spoken, but it takes time for you to be aware and learn and understand about the culture. So I think that's the first thing. I mean, in a company, obviously there should be some type of onboarding. There should be help, but it's just good to not just go in with, you want to do good work, you want to do, but to take sometimes, or even if it's working with a client, take time to learn and understand what that client expects, their expectations, how you can best serve. Like if you're doing business in Japan, you come with a gift, and there's just so many different things that if you're not aware of, but it's just good to be aware that you're not aware, and you can read and you can talk with people in that culture, to help you understand. That's just that's just not the way we do things here, and that just takes time. You just have to be in that culture, and but that's one of the best ways to learn is like through immersion. If you're learning a language, you just get in there and you're among the people and you learn from them and grow with them, and you can just you'll see things that you weren't aware of, or you didn't realize about your own culture that are just different. Like I remember Europe, I studied abroad in Italy when I was in college, and we're used to, ice, like asking for ice when you're for a drink, because of certain countries, the water situation, they don't always provide this little things that we're accustomed to, and it's not wrong. And not to be judgmental, to realize that there is more than one way. So you don't want to be ethnocentric, where you think that your culture, your way of doing things is the best way to do something. You realize that there's other ways of doing things. Doesn't make it wrong, doesn't make yours more right. It's just a different way of doing something.
Speaking of like nonprofits serve the community, right? Anywhere from, I know we talked about like HIV clinics, we talked about serving the Haitian community, but there's so many different amazing causes out there. Oftentimes we have leadership and staff that don't always reflect the population they serve. What advice could you give a nonprofit besides hiring you to come in and help them to really, I know their heart is in the right place to provide a service or a program, but how would they start like connecting culturally with the population they're serving?
And so a lot of what I just said earlier about not going in with assumptions that you know the best way to serve this community, to actually have focus groups and an advisory board made up of people that are from that community as well, that understand that community and the needs of that community, so that at least you're going in more informed about how to best serve. But then also making efforts to have people in your staff and within leadership that reflect the community should be a goal ultimately, and as well as just having those connections with community stakeholders that are within that community, whether that's through local organizations, churches, different things, to help you to navigate the complexities that may come with addressing certain issues and becoming a trusted member of that community. And so if you're able to establish those relationships, it will help you to be able to.
Yeah. I like what you said about getting the people involved, because my client, Vaxtruth, which is a subsidiary of Emmanuel Lutheran Church in Naples. They're based out of Naples. What they did to, whether you are for or against vaccines, COVID-19 vaccines, that's a personal choice. But one of the things they did in the beginning, there was a lot of health disparities in the minority communities, and a lot of minority communities were not able to get appointments and get vaccinated for those who wanted to. So what they did was the pastor of the church was reach out to the black and brown churches and got together with the pastors, because those are the trusted voices, right? Everyone trusts their pastors. And they were able to, I believe, vaccinate over like 3,000 or 5,000 people and get the vaccines delivered directly to them, and get the people who wanted to be vaccinated. And I thought that was genius. And as part of my role as part of that initiative is also working with people in the community, because I'm out there. I used to go to poetry night. I used to do listening tours like via Zoom, and invite people to just have a discussion, not pro or against the vaccine. But I think those trusted voices, I don't think we use that enough to bring people together and make them feel comfortable. Because like you're still married, but I was married to someone from Trinidad and Tobago. So we were both brown, but we had a lot of culture clash.
Yes, and my presentation, and so definitely, I'm Southern California. There is definitely some intercultural communication dynamics we had to get used to. Just different ways of communicating, common in Caribbean culture, they might speak loud and very passionate. And, so for some people, they'd be like, okay, like you said, like, why are you upset? Like, we're just having a conversation.
Some cultures sound like they're arguing.
Exactly. And he would be on like a phone with his brother, like having this like heated. And I'm like, is everything okay? Like, no, we're just having a conversation. So, those are, you could be of the same. And that's true. You don't want to make that assumption.
Right.
Well, just because by race, you might be the same. There are different cultural dynamics. So many things I learned by actually going to Haiti and by being married and within the family that I didn't know, just because we're the same.
And our differences could actually, if we I guess learn how to communicate with each other, our differences can actually be used as an advantage. Can you provide some examples of advantages of being culturally different?
There are different, I think it just gives you a broader perspective on things when you are surrounded by people that think in different ways. And that's culturally, that's intellectually, that's professionally, that's how you grow. If you're just around people that think exactly the way you do, that are going to respond, then really, there's no growth in that. When you're challenged and when you're able to look at, and that's what brings innovation, and that's what brings new ideas and things that you would have never thought of. And so I think it's definitely, I just was in Puerto Rico last week.
Oh, wow.
I love going to different places. I've lived.
Let's talk about the food.
Okay.
Yeah.
You get to taste foods from all over the world.
Yes.
Different things you would have never been exposed to.
You know what behooves me is that some people could not like a culture or a group of people, but they'll go and eat the food, or they'll go and dance to the music.
Exactly.
Like, how is that even possible? Why? Do you know why psychologically people do that?
Because they segment or compartmentalize, so they think that, just like within, we want to keep it real, within our own history, within America, that yes, blacks were good to cook and take care of kids and to dance and perform for us, but we didn't see them as equals. So it's like, yes, people can think that. And it could be a good stereotype, but it doesn't, you have to really have true relationship with people to be able to say that, okay, yes, this person is of a different culture and we share this in common. They have concerns about their family like I have concerns, to really get to know someone, not just what media projects or just, going to a restaurant. And I think that's a great start. I mean, that's better than nothing. Like if you could at least begin to experience new things, but then understand, but a true understanding and a respect and appreciation for the individual person and the culture, it comes with time and real relationships.
Yeah, very interesting. Because I just thinking that I've always tried to expose myself to different things and just level up, and it's just been like an amazing experience with just being open-minded. However, I'm smart enough to know that not everybody, I guess it's not easy for everyone because everyone has different experiences, and people think and act based on their experiences, right? So you don't know if somebody was traumatized, they were growing up, what their lifestyles were, and I think that forces us to act accordingly. But how does someone come to terms with wanting to change and be open to different things?
And I think it starts with a self-awareness and a realizing that some of the things that you grew up hearing or that you experienced were isolated events, and that, or you can't judge a whole group of people by, one incident, or that they begin to need to challenge your thinking and your mindset. Growing up in Southern California, I was very fortunate to have friends of every single background and nationality in my house, me going to their houses. And so that in and of itself made me look at yes, you might see things on the news. Yes, you might experience. My mom worked for international companies. And so I was raised in an environment that was very open to diversity. But some people may have not grown up in that way, but they want to become. And so they have to do the work. And we all have to do the work of challenging our assumptions and challenging our ways of thinking and asking, is this really based on reality, or is this just my prejudice? My pre-assumption of what I think it is. But so that's why you always need to have that balance of real relationships and real, because then you can say, well, yes, that may be the case, but I know Jane, I know this person, and that just doesn't line up.
Yeah. Well, growing up in South Central, for me, I grew up around all African Americans in the I was born in 75, and then through the 80s, so I kind of consider myself 80s. And then it wasn't until I would say maybe 85 on, our schools became integrated with Spanish people. And there were a lot of fights every day because, they were coming in, and I just didn't understand it. And when I got my first car, the first thing I did was drive, and I just kept driving because I wanted to see what everything else was, what the rest of the world was like, or the rest of the area was like. And I started to see people that didn't look like me, and guess what? I was very uncomfortable. But I knew the neighborhood that I grew up in, which started off as a middle-class, really nice neighborhood where there were two-family household, everyone owned a home. And then, unfortunately, during the 80s, crack cocaine was introduced, which tore up the neighborhood and the family structure. But I knew that that's not where I wanted to raise a family, and that's ultimately where I wanted to be. And culturally, I grew up in South Central, but internally, I wasn't South Central. I don't know if that makes sense.
That does make sense.
So therefore, I never fit in. I was teased for the way I spoke, the way I dressed, everything. I always stood out. And so I knew if I wanted to be successful and I wanted something different, I had to get used to being uncomfortable. But again, that's easier said than done because we all want to be comfortable. We want to fit in. We want to be liked. How does someone be okay with being different and not having to fit in? Because even me at my age, I wouldn't say I struggle with that, but I am aware that it's okay to not fit in. It's okay that I'm not at all the charity events. It's okay that I'm protecting my peace as an adult.
That's always important. Most definitely. So when you were sharing that, I thought about my experience in undergraduate. And so, like I said, I grew up in a very diverse community in like South Bay, Torrance area. There's a lot of Asian, Hispanic, Black. Like, it's just a mixture of everyone. And I went to Pepperdine for undergrad. So, for those of you who don't know, Pepperdine's in Malibu, California. That's the only way I would have been living.
Malibu, wow.
Malibu. Beautiful campus. I had a beautiful experience. But literally, I could probably know every person of color's name.
Oh, wow.
There was not that many of it. So, definitely, it was an adjustment. And I remember my friend who was coming from Atlanta. It was a huge adjustment for him. He actually was an athlete, and I could understand because he was surrounded completely African American environment to go to predominantly white environment. But for me, I've always kind of been a people like I just like to get to know and understand people, and even within that environment, I mean, we had our groups, as far as I was like vice president of the Black Student Association, like different
at
things.
Pepperdine? Oh, really? And how many students were in that?
Probably 100 or
Oh, that's a good amount.
That's like everybody. No, it wasn't everybody, but no, it was a good amount. And definitely, so you do need to have that sense of foundation and being grounded and rooted, and so that you don't feel alone, but being willing to experience. Like I said, I studied abroad. I went to Italy. It's also thrust into another. When I was in high school, I did a program through Rotary where I was in Japan and I just love learning. And so I know I'm probably not the typical person that likes it's like a culture shock to most people, but I think like if you go into with the mindset of like, what can I learn and how can I grow, and you learn people are people. Yes. They struggle with some of the same things that you're struggling with, and when you're open and you don't go in with a lot of judgment and criticism, but just really being open to the experience, I'm eternally grateful for the experience where I was definitely probably the only. I remember in Japan, like literally people would come up, I had braids, they would come, and I was like a superstar.
Oh, wow.
It's really a pretty homogenous country. It's not that diverse, and so people that are there, like they see it on media, it's just like superstars, and like literally people take pictures of me. These kids are like taking pictures of me for their school.
Oh, that's cute.
It was fun.
I saw this. I think it was something on YouTube where this really, really, really dark guy from Africa was in Japan, and this Japanese boy ran up to him. He said, "Excuse me, sir, why are you so black?" And he was like, "It's because," and the guy wasn't offended. He's like, "Because I'm from Africa," and he gave him the history, and the kid was just smiling. I was like, that was a great way to handle it. Instead of being offended, try first to understand. Yeah, because when I first moved here, I actually lived in Naples before I moved to Fort Myers, and I've I never met a Haitian person before, never was familiar, because in LA we have mostly like Jamaicans and Ethiopians and different types of people, and people would always come up to me and speak Creole, and I said, no, I'm American, and they got mad with me. They said, well, what about your parents? And I was like, no, they're from Louisiana, they're from the South. And they couldn't, they say, well, you look Haitian. I was like, what does Haitian look like? I'm like, I couldn't understand it. I'm like, I was like, and I had to find out like who were Haitian people. So before we wrap up, I want to ask you one question. Out of all the countries you live in, which one was your favorite?
That's a hard one. So I will say that where I had the most life-changing experience and literally cried when I left for South Africa.
Oh, wow.
And
Why?
there, you know, like when you get off the plane and like they come to greet you and they say welcome home, I can't really explain the feeling that it's just a sense of like, there is just a sense of home there, and like the people were just so welcoming and warm. And though I went there, I actually had a grant to go to Cape Town University and do some work, but then we also had a family friend and I was able to stay with the family, and like literally people who didn't know me from anyone like just welcomed me in their homes, and I just had just the people, the land, the places. And then I did my ancestry DNA and found out that I do have some roots in South Africa. And it was just like, yeah, it was just a full circle moment.
Dr. Phanor, we could speak all day, but we can't. Please tell our audience how they can reach out to you.
So definitely, Dr. Tonia Phanor, Tonia, on everything, PHANOR, drtoniaphanor.com for communication training and speaking. On every platform, it's Dr. Tonia Phanor. So definitely love to hear from you. Feel free to reach out.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your background and your experience with the audience. This is Tamika for Grow Your Nonprofit, and we're signing out.